So here we are, back in Kerbal Space Program, orbiting the beautiful planet of Kerbin. There's the sun. There's the moon. If I press M to go into the map, you'll see that I'm actually in an orbit. When I'm orbiting Kerbin, I am traveling around it. If I'm in a stable orbit, I could keep going around it over and over again and not have to worry about falling back into the planet. So if I speed up time by pressing the period key a few times, you can see that it will continue to orbit, no problem. I have a apoapsis, which is my furthest point from the planet, and that's 453,000 meters. And I have a periapsis, which is my closest point to the planet, and that's 424,000 meters. If I had a really circular orbit, both of these numbers would be very close to each other. So my furthest point and my narrowest point would be about the same. This is not bad, but I could do a little bit better. Today's lesson, I'm going to show you how to reach orbit around Kerbin. The first thing we're going to need to do is to modify our spaceship. So let's go back to the Vehicle Space Center. In our previous staging video, we made a rocket that's very similar to this one. We're going to need to modify it if we want to make orbit. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is pull this rocket off here. The problem is 2 boosters just isn't going to cut it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these decouplers. And now I'm going to press the X key a couple of times. And you'll notice down in the lower left-hand corner, the symmetry is changing. So X is the shortcut key to make that happen. I'm going to press it one more time. Now when I put the decouplers back on, I'll be making 4 of them. I also have this mode enabled called Angle Snap. So you can click that on and off. When it's on, it helps me find a good angle to put the decouplers on. And I want to make sure that these decouplers are lined up straight on with the rocket. So let's go ahead like that. And oops, that's not what I want. Just like that. Now when I stick the rocket booster back on, my symmetry mode is still in 4, so I have 4 boosters. But I am not done yet. I'm going to take off these engines, and I'm going to go grab another fuel tank. And add that to the bottom of these boosters. Now I can add my engine back to the bottom. And I'm actually almost done. I need to do one last thing, and that's attach a fuel line. So if I'm in propulsion still, and I go to the very last page, I have this thing called a fuel duct. And it's going to take fuel from one fuel tank and add it to another. And what I want to do is I'm still on symmetry mode of 4. I'm going to attach from the booster. Oh, and this one is kind of finicky, so it doesn't always do what it's supposed to do. So it might take a couple of tries to get it to stick to the main tank. There we go. So now all 4 of my boosters have a fuel line going from the booster to the fuel tank, the main fuel tank. Whichever one I start with is the one where the fuel is going to come from, and wherever I end with is where the fuel is going to go. And what's going to happen here is while these boosters are burning their engines, they're also going to pump fuel into the main engine. And what's going to happen is that means that these tanks on the sides of the boosters will burn out first, and they'll leave a lot of fuel in the main one. I can jettison these 4 boosters and lighten myself up a lot and still have plenty of fuel in the main rocket to make it into orbit. That should make a little bit more sense here in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my launch assisters. Actually, are they in... I always forget where these are. There they are. I just missed them. They're in structural. They're right here. Okay, let's attach those to the rocket. And it's always a good idea to check my staging before I launch. And it's a good thing I did, because this is not correct. If I were to try and fly the rocket right now, pressing the spacebar the first time would simply release these 4 launch stabilizers, but it wouldn't actually fire my engines. And the rocket would just fall back to the launch pad and go boom. So I'm going to go ahead and click on these and drag all 4 of them up here. So in my first stage, all 5 of my rockets fire and my launch stabilizers fall away. Second stage is when the decouplers decouple, releasing the boosters. The first stage is I'm going to release everything. And the last stage is when I release the parachute. So let's give it a shot. Here I am on the launch pad, first thing in the morning. Sun's just coming up on the horizon, and Jebediah is ready for launch. So I'm going to go ahead and press the T key. Very important to turn on my SAS, which will help keep me pointed upwards towards the sky. And I'm going to go ahead and launch with the spacebar. That didn't work. Well, that was awkward. If you were paying attention, you probably realized what I did wrong. And I forgot to turn on the throttle. So I guess I got caught up in the excitement of our launch. But Jebediah is back on the launch pad and he's ready to go. So I am going to press T again to turn on the SAS. I'm going to hold down the left shift key to throttle up. And now I'm going to press the spacebar to launch. And that is really loud, so I'm going to turn the settings down so that you guys can hear me. And we're off. So we are going to fly the rocket until it gets to about 10,000 meters above the surface. And when that happens, we're going to actually make a turn. It's called a gravity turn. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for a minute so you don't just sit here and watch me for the next 2 or 3 minutes. I'll be right back when I'm at around 10,000 meters. While we're waiting, I want to point a few things out. You can see that these 4 boosters down here, they're losing fuel a little bit quicker than the main engine, and that's what we want. But in a second, I'm going to have to use my nav ball down here, and I'm going to have to make a maneuver. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and it might take you a few tries to get it right. But I'm going to be trying to point my ship right here, where my mouse is, towards the 90-degree mark. If you look really close, you can see that it says 90. And that's towards the east. So here we are at 10,000 meters. I'm going to press the T key to release the SAS. And I'm going to press the D key to move my ship in that direction. If I go too far, I can use the A key to bring myself back, but when I get where I want to go, I'm going to press the T key again. And that's going to lock me in this position, and that's what I want. I'm going to go ahead and press the M key to bring up the map mode. And you'll see that now my flight path is a little bit more circular. In just a minute, these boosters are going to run out of fuel, and I'm going to press the space bar to jettison them. And when I do, notice what happens to the fuel of my main engine. Here we go. They jettisoned, but before they did, they pushed some fuel back into my main engine, so I have lots of fuel in that main one. I'm going to press M again to see how we're doing. All right, we're doing good. My apoapsis, oh man, it's already at 128. I'm going to press the X key. The X key killed all my throttle, brought the throttle back down to 0. So now I'm just sort of drifting in space. And if I don't do anything at this point, I will follow this flight path. You see it's starting to shrink a little bit, and I will fly right back into Kerbin. But that is not what I want. I'm going to come down here to bring the nav ball up. You see him kind of spinning a little bit, and I can correct that usually by undoing the SAS with T and redoing it. There we go. That helped me to right myself a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until my ship is at the apoapsis, which you'll recall is the furthest point from the planet. Once I get to the apoapsis, I am going to burn my engines. When I do that, it's going to make my orbit bigger. But in order to make it bigger, I have to burn in a certain direction. And that direction is called the prograde. This yellow circle is the prograde direction. That's what I want. It is not to be confused with what's called the retrograde direction. Retrograde is on the other side of the nav ball, and it has the X through it. That would make me go back towards the planet. That would slow me down, and I don't want to do that. I want to speed up, so I'm zipping around the planet. So I've turned the SAS off with T, and now I need to line my ship up with this prograde indicator using the W, A, S, and D keys. This takes some practice. Once I get it where I want, I'm going to press the T key. And that's probably close enough for now. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see how far away I am from the apoapsis. And I'm going to press the period button a couple of times to speed up time just a little bit. And my game's hiccuping a little bit because I'm recording and it's sort of straining my system. Alright. As we get closer, you'll see I've drifted off of the prograde indicator a little bit. So right before I get there, I'm going to readjust to make sure that I'm on that prograde. Alright, I'm going to press the T to release the SAS, and now I'm going to move back over towards the prograde nice and gently. I'm going to line it up as best I can. Like I said, this takes some practice. I'm going to press T. Alright, now once I'm at the apoapsis, I'm going to hold down left shift, and I'm going to throttle back up. This is my burn. I'm burning fuel. And here we go. My throttle's back up. I'm burning fuel, and you'll see that my orbit is starting to grow. I'm going to zoom way out so we can see it, and I'm going to change the angle. If I go back to my ship mode by pressing M, I got plenty of fuel left. So I'm just going to stay in this view. I'm going to keep burning, let my orbit continue to grow. And I'll know that I have an orbit when, in addition to an apoapsis, on the other side I'm going to have what's called a periapsis. And you'll see that in just a minute. And we're growing, growing, growing. Okay. There it is. There's the periapsis. I'm going to press the X key. That cut all my throttle. The apoapsis is the furthest point from the planet, and that's at 150,000 meters. My periapsis is the closest part to the planet, and that's at 127,000 meters. That's not bad. As long as my periapsis is above about 80 or 90,000 meters, I will be in a stable orbit, and I can continue to orbit over and over again without falling back into the planet. If my periapsis is lower than that, then I'm going to be in the atmosphere, and I'm eventually going to fall back to the planet. So here I am, and I've reached orbit, and we made it. So Jebediah, happy as a clam, is having a good old time orbiting the planet Kerbin, which is a very beautiful sight. Now, to prove that you have reached orbit, you're going to make another little PowerPoint. This one won't be as long and won't be as hard. Have a title slide. The title, Making Orbit, comes to mind. Make sure there's some sort of space theme. And I want a few pictures. One slide, I want to have a picture of this, of your ship with the planet Kerbin below. Another slide needs to have a picture of your orbit. But, and here's the important part, I want you to have your mouse hovering over the periapsis while you take the picture so that we can see that your periapsis is higher than about 90,000. It needs to be higher than 90,000. And then the last slide will be a picture of you once you have reached Kerbal again and you're back either on land or in the water. And now I'm going to show you how to do that. How do we deorbit? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for myself to get back to the apoapsis, which is always the best place to make a burn. And instead of going in the prograde direction, which speeds me up and makes my orbit bigger, I'm going to turn in the retrograde direction, which slows me down and makes my orbit smaller. So I'm going to get myself lined up with the retrograde over here. This is probably going to change by the time I get over to the apoapsis, but that's okay. I'm going to keep it locked on here for now. And I'm going to speed up time with the period button. And I was right. We're slipping away from the retrograde, but that's fine. As we get a little closer, I will zoom back into that. Alright, so let's bring time back down to normal. Let's get a little closer. Okay, I'm going to release the SAS so I can maneuver. And I'm going to go find the retrograde again. And you remember that retrograde has an X through it. Think of it as Xing out your speed, because that's what it does. It slows you down. You're basically turning in the opposite direction that you're moving and trying to go backwards from the way you're coming. I'm going to press the T key, and I'm going to wait to reach the apoapsis. And when I do, I'm going to turn on my engine with the left shift key, and I should have enough fuel left to get back into Kerbin. So let's do this. Here we go. Throttle's back up. You see how quickly that happens? And it's gone. Okay, I pressed X to bring my throttle back down to 0, and you can see my new flight path is going to bring me right back into the ocean over here. I'm going to burn a little bit longer with the shift key to make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to press X now. This way, maybe I give it a shot of landing on the ground. This will probably change once I enter the atmosphere, but you never know. All right, so now it's just a waiting game. I'm going to speed up time a little bit. I'm going to go back to this view. Right now it's nighttime on this side of Kerbin. But if I'm patient, we're going to see the sunrise. Right over here. It's going to be beautiful. So I'm going to speed up time. You can see it getting lighter and lighter as the planet turns and begins to face the sun. There we are. Sunset over Kerbin. Let's check our orbit again. How are we doing? All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. And you've seen my destination has actually changed a little bit because I'm slowing down because I'm beginning to hit the atmosphere and I'm bumping up against all the air and the wind and there's turbulence. And so I'm probably going to end up in the water somewhere over here. And that's okay. So I'm 62,000 meters. That means I'm in the atmosphere. I'm going to go ahead and decouple my pod. And I'm going to speed up time. And I'm going to pause and I'll come back in a sec. Okay, we're falling pretty quick. We're approaching 30,000 meters. I'm going to press spacebar to deploy my chute. You see, we're going so fast in the air that the air is hitting our pod so hard that it's actually causing flames. That's friction from the atmosphere. And that actually happens when things enter the atmosphere, things like comets or spacecraft. And we're just passing below 10,000. Uh-oh. Trying to straighten out a little bit. Oh no, there's my parachute. You know what? I think I forgot to deploy it. I think I'm going to be in trouble here in a second. Let's see. It's going to open fully. I'm still going pretty fast. Oh, and the parachute deployed. Slows me down to about 6 meters per second. And any minute, I'm going to splash down on the ocean, which is fine. That's actually how it happens in real life. And I'm going to press the print screen button and take a picture for my PowerPoint. And I have reached orbit and come back alive. So congratulations. There we are. See you next time.